6 Signs of a Stupid Person. The truth about stupidity. Let's face it, stupidity is everywhere. You see it on the news, in your social circles, maybe even in yourself sometimes. But here's the thing. Stupidity isn't about IQ scores or whether you failed a math test. No, stupidity runs much deeper than that. It's about patterns of behavior, ways of thinking, and choices people make every single day that scream, "I'm not thinking this through." Now, before you get defensive, let's be real. We've all had those moments where we look back and think, wow, that was dumb. That's not what we're talking about here. Mistakes are human. Stupidity is a mindset, a refusal to learn, grow, or adapt. And trust me, if you know the signs, you'll start spotting them in people around you, and maybe even in yourself. Why is this important? Because stupid people don't just inconvenience themselves, they drag everyone else down with them. They disrupt teams, ruin relationships, and even harm society at large. And worst of all, they often don't even realize they're doing it. But here's the good news. Identifying stupidity isn't just about pointing fingers. It's about recognizing the signs so you can avoid them in others and in yourself. It's about becoming the kind of person who rises above the noise, thinks critically, and creates positive change instead of chaos. So buckle up. We're not here to sugarcoat things. We're diving into 6 unmistakable signs of stupidity, traits that hold people back and make the world a messier place. By the end of this, you'll have a clear picture of what to watch out for, how to deal with it, and maybe, just maybe, how to make sure you're not guilty of these traits yourself. Ready? Let's get into it. Signs 1. The Dunning-Kruger effect, thinking they know it all. You've met them before, the ones who act like they've got it all figured out. The ones who, despite knowing absolutely nothing about a topic, somehow speak with the confidence of an expert. They're loud, they're sure of themselves, and they love to tell you why you're wrong. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to one of the clearest signs of stupidity, the Dunning-Kruger effect. What's the Dunning-Kruger effect, you ask? It's a fancy name for a simple truth. Stupid people often overestimate their abilities. They don't know enough to realize how little they know, and that ignorance fuels their overconfidence. It's like someone who's played one game of chess, suddenly thinking they're ready to take on a grandmaster. They lack the self-awareness to see the vast gap between their perception and reality. And here's the kicker. This isn't just annoying, it's dangerous. These people bulldoze their way into situations they're not qualified for, make decisions without understanding the consequences, and lead others astray with their misplaced confidence. It's not just ignorance, it's ignorance on steroids. Take a moment to think about this. How many times have you seen someone offer unsolicited advice about something they clearly don't understand? How many times has someone dismissed expert opinions because they did their own research? That's the Dunning-Kruger effect in action. Now, let's be clear. Confidence isn't a bad thing, but confidence without competence, that's a recipe for disaster. And the worst part? These people are almost impossible to reason with. Why? Because they think they already know everything. They're so busy proving themselves that they can't stop to learn something new. Here's a reality check. Truly smart people are often the ones who doubt themselves the most. They know there's always more to learn. They ask questions, they seek advice, and they're humble enough to admit when they're wrong. That's what separates intelligence from stupidity, self-awareness. So how do you deal with someone who's trapped in the Dunning-Kruger loop? Simple. Don't engage in a battle of egos. You won't win. Instead, ask questions that force them to reflect. Challenge their ideas gently but firmly, and let reality do the rest. Over time, life has a funny way of humbling even the most arrogant. But more importantly, ask yourself, are there areas in your life where you might be overestimating your knowledge? Are you so sure of something that you've stopped listening, stopped learning, or stopped growing? Because if you're not careful, the Dunning-Kruger effect can sneak up on anyone. Yes, even you. Here's the takeaway. The smartest thing you can say is, I don't know, but but I'm willing to find out. Intelligence isn't about having all the answers. It's about having the curiosity and humility to seek them. So, the next time you encounter a know-it-all or feel like you're becoming one yourself, remember this: true wisdom starts with admitting what you don't know. That's where growth begins. Signs 2. Lack of empathy. They can't see beyond themselves. Let's get straight to it. One of the clearest signs of stupidity is the inability to understand or care about how others feel. That's right, we're talking about a lack of empathy. And let me tell you, this trait is far more destructive than you might realize. Think about it. Empathy is what makes us human. It's the ability to put yourself in someone else's shoes, to feel their joy, their pain, their struggles. It's what allows us to connect, to collaborate, and to build meaningful relationships. Without empathy, a person becomes selfish, tone-deaf, and completely disconnected from the world around them. You've seen this type before. They interrupt conversations to make everything about themselves. They dismiss other people's problems with lines like, "That's not my issue," or "Just get over it." Worse, they don't even try to understand how their actions might hurt others. They bulldoze through life, leaving a trail of broken relationships and frustrated people in their wake. And here's the real kicker: they think they're the victim. They'll say things like, "Nobody understands me," or "Why does everyone overreact?" The irony? It's them who's not understanding others. This lack of self-awareness, this emotional blindness, is what makes them truly, deeply foolish. Here's a story for you. Imagine someone who always takes credit at work, even when they didn't do the heavy lifting. When confronted, instead of acknowledging their team's efforts, they shrug and say, "Well, I deserved it." That's not just selfish, that's stupid, because in the long run, nobody trusts or respects someone who operates that way. They burn bridges faster than they can build them. Empathy isn't just about being nice, it's about being smart. Empathy helps you read the room, anticipate reactions, and navigate conflicts with grace. Without it, you're flying blind in a world full of complex emotions. And let's be real, if you can't even understand the people around you, how can you expect to succeed in life? Here's the hard truth. A lack of empathy isn't just bad for relationships, it's bad for you. It isolates you. It makes people avoid you. It limits your ability to grow because you're too busy thinking about yourself to learn from others. But here's the good news. Empathy is a skill. You can learn it, develop it, and use it to become not just smarter, but also kinder and more impactful. Start by listening, really listening. Ask questions without trying to fix or judge. Pay attention to body language and tone. And most importantly, stop thinking about what you want to say next and focus on what the other person is actually saying. So, the next time someone shares their feelings or struggles, don't brush them off. Don't make it about you. Take a moment to step outside of your own world and into theirs. Because the truth is, a lack of empathy is one of the loudest alarms of stupidity, and the smarter path. It's choosing to care, every time. Signs 3. Closed-mindedness, the stubborn wall. You know what's worse than being wrong? Being so stubborn that you refuse to even consider the possibility. That's the hallmark of a closed-minded person, a stubborn wall that blocks out new ideas, different perspectives, and any chance for growth. And let me tell you, closed-mindedness is one of the most glaring signs of stupidity. Here's the thing. Intelligent people don't claim to know everything. They stay open to new information, they listen, and they adapt. Closed-minded people? They do the exact opposite. They dig their heels in, cling to outdated beliefs, and shut down any idea that challenges their comfort zone. Why? Because deep down they're scared. Scared of being wrong, scared of change, and scared of stepping into the unknown. You've seen it before. Maybe it's the person who refuses to try new technology because the old way works just fine. or the one who dismisses an argument not because they've thought it through, but because they can't stand being proven wrong. And let's not forget the people who refuse to learn from others, thinking they already have all the answers. Spoiler alert, they don't. Closed-mindedness isn't just annoying, it's destructive. It kills innovation, ruins relationships, and keeps people stuck in the same place while the world moves on without them. Imagine a business leader who refuses to adapt to market trends, or a friend who can't accept that your opinion might differ from theirs. These people aren't just stubborn, they're sabotaging themselves and everyone around them. But here's the catch. Closed-minded people don't think they're the problem. They'll say, "I just know what I believe," or "I have principles." And while principles are great, there's a fine line between sticking to your values and being so rigid that you miss out on growth. Intelligence requires flexibility. Stupidity clings to rigidity. So how do you spot a closed-minded person? Simple. They're the ones who, 1. Interrupt conversations to push their point instead of listening. 2. Avoid questions that challenge their beliefs. 3. Repeat the same arguments, even when they've been proven wrong. 4. Get defensive or angry when faced with opposing views. If that sounds familiar, here's the harsh truth. Closed-mindedness isn't just their problem, it might be yours too. Let's be honest, we've all had moments where we refused to hear someone out because it was easier to stay comfortable. But here's the thing. Comfort zones are like quicksand. The longer you stay in them, the harder it is to climb out. So, how do you break free from closed-mindedness? Start by asking yourself this. What if I'm wrong? Not to doubt yourself endlessly, but to stay curious and open. Seek out perspectives that challenge you, even if they make you uncomfortable. Listen to people with different opinions, not to argue, but to understand. Growth doesn't come from defending your walls, it comes from tearing them down. Here's the bottom line. Closed-mindedness is stupidity in disguise. It masquerades as confidence, but all it really does is limit your potential. So the next time you catch yourself shutting down an idea before you've fully explored it, remember this. The smartest people aren't the ones who know it all. They're the ones willing to learn it all. Keep the door open, because you never know what brilliance might walk in. Signs. 4. Inability to accept responsibility. Always the victim. Here's a truth bomb. If someone constantly blames others for their problems, you're not looking at someone unlucky. You're looking at someone who's choosing to stay stupid. That's right. An inability to accept responsibility is one of the most frustrating and obvious signs of stupidity. And it's not just a bad habit, it's a mindset that guarantees failure. You know the type. They're never at fault. Late to work? It was traffic. Missed a deadline. The tools weren't good enough. Lost a relationship? Their ex was crazy. Their life is a revolving door of excuses, and in their world, everyone else is the villain. The problem? They've built their entire identity around being the victim. Here's the thing. Intelligent people take ownership. They look at a mistake and say, "Yeah, I messed up. Let's fix it." They understand that responsibility isn't about blame, it's about control. When you own your actions, you own your ability to change. But when you point fingers, you're stuck, powerless, and at the mercy of everyone and everything around you. Let's get real. Refusing to accept responsibility doesn't make problems disappear. It just shifts the blame temporarily while the underlying issues get worse. Imagine someone who spends all their money irresponsibly and then complains they're broke because the economy is bad. Sure, the economy might be tough, but let's call it what it is. They made poor choices, and now they're dealing with the consequences. Blame won't change that. And let's not forget the ripple effect. These people drag others down with their refusal to grow. They create toxic work environments by dodging accountability, forcing teammates to clean up their messes. They ruin friendships and relationships by never admitting when they're wrong. They push people away because, let's face it, nobody wants to deal with someone who never takes responsibility. But here's the twist. These people often think they're protecting themselves by avoiding blame. In reality, they're doing the opposite. By refusing to own their mistakes, they lose trust, respect, and opportunities to improve. It's like trying to build a house on a cracked foundation. Eventually, it all falls apart. So how do you spot this behavior? Look out for these telltale signs. 1. They always have an excuse no matter the situation. 2. They get defensive or angry when called out. 3. They shift blame to others, even when it's clearly their fault. 4. They play the victim, making themselves the center of every sob story. But here's the part that stings. We've all been guilty of this at some point. Let's not pretend we haven't dodged responsibility when it felt easier to blame someone else. The question is, do you stay in that mindset, or do you choose to rise above it? Here's how to flip the script. Start small. The next time something goes wrong, resist the urge to point fingers. Instead, ask yourself, what part of this is on me? What can I do to make it better? It's not about beating yourself up. It's about empowering yourself to take charge of your life. Here's the takeaway. Refusing to accept responsibility is the ultimate act of self-sabotage. It keeps you stuck in the same cycles, repeating the same mistakes, while blaming the world for your problems. But when you take ownership, that's when things start to change. That's when you start to grow, succeed, and earn the respect of those around you. So, the next time life throws you a curveball, don't waste energy blaming the pitcher. Step up to the plate and take a swing. Because responsibility isn't a burden, it's your greatest tool for building the life you want. Signs 5. Poor decision-making, ignoring consequences. Let's get one thing straight. Everyone makes bad decisions from time to time. It's human. But there's a huge difference between making the occasional mistake and living life like a walking disaster. Consistently poor decision-making, that's a glaring sign of stupidity. And the worst part, the people who do this rarely even realize the chaos they're causing for themselves and everyone around them. Here's the thing about smart people. They think before they act. They weigh the pros and cons, consider the long-term consequences, and ask themselves, is this really the best move? Stupid people. They dive in head first without a second thought. It's all impulse, no reflection. You've seen this play out. It's the person who blows their paycheck on something ridiculous and then complains about being broke. It's the friend who jumps into toxic relationships over and over again, convinced that this time will be different. It's the coworker who cuts corners at work to save time, only to create a mess that takes twice as long to clean up. It's reckless, it's avoidable, and it screams, I didn't think this through. But let's not just talk about money or relationships. Poor decision-making shows up in every corner of life. Ignoring health until it becomes a crisis. Choosing short-term pleasure over long-term success. Burning bridges with people who genuinely care because of petty pride. These aren't just bad calls, they're habits. And habits like these don't just hurt the person making them. They ripple out and affect everyone around them. A poorly thought-out decision can derail a team, damage a family, or wreck a community. It's not just personal, it's collateral stupidity. Now let's get to the root of the problem. Why do some people make terrible decisions over and over again? Simple. They don't think about consequences. They live in the moment, chasing instant gratification without considering what's next. It's like eating an entire cake because it tastes good right now, and then wondering why you feel sick later. Newsflash, the future always catches up. And here's the kicker. These people will often blame anything but themselves when things go wrong. It wasn't my fault. I didn't know it would turn out this way. Really? Because most of the time, the warning signs were there. They just chose to ignore them. So how do you avoid this trap? How do you make smarter choices? Start by slowing down. Before you act, ask yourself these 3 questions. 1. What's the best case scenario? 2. What's the worst case scenario? 3. Am I okay with both? It's that simple. Smart decision-making isn't about being perfect. It's about being mindful. It's about thinking ahead, understanding risks, and taking responsibility for your choices. And when you mess up, because let's be real, you will, own it, learn from it, and do better next time. Here's the hard truth. Life is a series of choices. Each one builds on the last, shaping your future brick by brick. Poor decisions? They're the cracks in your foundation. But the good news is, you have the power to fix them, if you're willing to stop, think, and make better calls. So the next time you're faced with a decision, don't rush into it. Take a moment to ask yourself, is this worth it? What happens next? Because smart people don't leave their lives to chance. They create their futures, one thoughtful choice at a time, and you can too. Sign 6. Lack of curiosity. They don't ask why. Here's a harsh truth. If someone isn't curious, they're not just stagnant, they're falling behind. A lack of curiosity is one of the biggest signs of stupidity, and it's often overlooked because, let's face it, it's easier to notice what someone does wrong than what they fail to even think about. But here's the deal. Curiosity is the spark that fuels intelligence, growth, and innovation. Without it, you're just stuck, repeating the same patterns forever. Think about it. Curious people ask questions. They want to know how things work, why things happen, and what they can do to make them better. They explore, they experiment, and they aren't afraid to challenge what they think they know. Stupid people? They settle. They take everything at face value and live in a bubble of good enough. Spoiler alert, good enough isn't good enough. You've seen this kind of mindset in action. It's the coworker who sticks to outdated methods because that's how we've always done it. It's the friend who zones out the moment a topic gets deep or unfamiliar. It's the person who never bothers to ask why because they're too busy coasting through life on autopilot. And here's the kicker. A lack of curiosity doesn't just hold people back, it drags everyone else down too. Imagine working with someone who never looks for better solutions or refuses to improve because they already know everything. It's frustrating, isn't it? Their ignorance becomes your problem because their lack of growth impacts the entire team, family, or community. But why do some people stop being curious? Simple. It's easier to stay comfortable. Curiosity requires effort. It forces you to question your beliefs, step outside your comfort zone, and admit that you don't know everything. And for some people, that's terrifying. They'd rather stay in their little world than face the fact that there's so much they don't understand. Here's the thing, though. The world is constantly changing. Technology evolves, industries shift, and knowledge grows every single day. If you're not curious, you're not just standing still. You're falling behind while everyone else moves forward. Curiosity is what keeps you relevant. Without it, you're like a plant that stops reaching for the sun, slowly withering away while everything else thrives. So how do you spot someone who lacks curiosity? It's easy. 1. Avoid asking questions or exploring new ideas. 2. Stick to routines and refuse to try new things. 3. Dismiss or ignore topics they don't already understand. 4. Show zero interest in learning or self-improvement. Sound familiar? Here's the hard truth. If you're not curious, you're choosing to stay ignorant. And that choice limits your potential, your opportunities, and your ability to connect with the world around you. But here's the good news. Curiosity is a skill, and it's never too late to develop it. Start by asking simple questions. Why is this the way it is? How does this work? What can I do to make this better? Seek out new experiences, read about topics you've never explored, and surround yourself with people who challenge your thinking. The more curious you are, the more you'll grow, and the smarter you'll become. Here's the bottom line. Curiosity is the engine of intelligence. It's what drives discovery, fuels creativity, and unlocks endless possibilities. A lack of curiosity? That's just laziness disguised as contentment. So the next time you catch yourself shrugging off a chance to learn something new, stop and ask, why not? Because the moment you stop asking questions is the moment you stop growing. And that's the biggest mistake of all. Conclusion: the real test of intelligence. So there you have it, the 6 unmistakable signs of stupidity. Overconfidence without competence, a lack of empathy, closed-mindedness, dodging responsibility, poor decision-making, and the absence of curiosity. These aren't just bad habits. They're mindsets that hold people back, damage relationships, and create chaos in their lives and the lives of others. But here's the thing: stupidity isn't permanent. It's not some unchangeable label stamped on someone forever. No, stupidity is a choice to stay stuck, to refuse growth, and to avoid reflection. And the best part, you can choose differently every single day. The smartest people aren't perfect. They don't know it all, they don't have life completely figured out, and they definitely make mistakes. What sets them apart is their willingness to learn, adapt, and grow. They embrace curiosity, take responsibility for their actions, and stay open to new ideas. They don't just settle for good enough, they strive for better, always. Now, here's your challenge. Take a hard look at yourself. Do any of these signs hit a little too close to home? Be honest, because the first step toward becoming better is admitting where you need to improve. Are you clinging to old beliefs out of fear? Avoiding responsibility because it's easier to blame others? Ignoring opportunities to learn because it feels uncomfortable? If so, today is the perfect day to change that. And when you recognize these traits in others, don't waste your energy trying to fix them. Instead, focus on protecting your peace and leading by example. Show what it means to live with self-awareness, empathy, and curiosity. Sometimes the best way to inspire change is simply to embody it. Remember, intelligence isn't about never making mistakes. It's about recognizing them, learning from them, and growing stronger because of them. True intelligence is about self-awareness, humility, and the courage to improve, not just for yourself, but for the people around you. So, ask yourself this: are you ready to rise above the noise, to ditch the excuses, the stubbornness, and the fear, to become the kind of person who inspires others instead of dragging them down? Because the world doesn't need more people clinging to stupidity. It needs people willing to embrace wisdom, growth, and change. The choice is yours. Stay stuck or step up. Because intelligence isn't about being born smart. It's about choosing to be smarter every day. And trust me, the rewards, they're worth it.